Hello and welcome to the 6:30, I sound like a train announcer, the 6:30 Neighbourhood Plan Advisory Committee. I'm so sorry to those of you who thought it was at 6. I thought it was at 6, but we'll focus on that next time and make sure that everything says the same time. Do we have any apologies? I know we have Councillor Nixon.
Just Jonathan.
Okay. And declarations of interest? No? The minutes of the last meeting, would somebody like to propose those? Anybody seconding? No, I don't think you can.
Yes.
Splendid. And can we have a vote? Marvellous. Okay, public forum. There isn't any members of the public here. There aren't any, sorry. And so I'd like to bring forward, because I'm aware that one or two members might like to make a swift exit, I'd like to bring forward item 7 at this point, site viability. So we've had the documents from locality.
Shall I check if Liz can?
Oh,
Liz, can you hear us?
aha, splendid. We've had the documents from locality, and very interesting reading it makes, you know, the Harmon guidance and all of that. I mean, my goodness, you do see what is involved in such a thing. Would anybody like to kick off on this?
The document that we have is just the format for the final thing.
And it feeds into the viability study.
Yes.
Because it's the master planning. It's like the decoration on the actual cake.
Indeed, yes. I mean, the item 7 on the agenda says to approve the master planning. So it's not actually to approve the master planning, it's to approve the format of the master planning. I don't have any particular issues with the format as it stands. It looks sensible to me. Could I ask when the actual documents will come forward for comment and consideration?
We were told that there would be a fortnight. I think I'm going to say that thing that I always say at all of these meetings, which is we are reliant on external people.
Thank you.
So in terms of the viability, if we could take all of this together, I know it comes under item 6 as well, doesn't it? The viability.
The actual approval
Okay.
of the document.
Are you happy with it, Michael? Just the structure?
I've no arguments with the structure at all, no.
Okay. So I propose from the chair that we approve this structure to move it on. Do I have a seconder? Brian? And all those in favour? Splendid. Okay. So going back to item 6, I'm not going to take this in the order that it's written here, just because I'd like to do the easier things first. So if we can carry on the lines of viability study 2, which I read before Christmas and I read again, and I, rather like a novel that you read for the second time, I took more from it, I think, this time. It's promising for us. There were times 2-3 years ago where we would have wept with joy to have seen such a document. Does anybody have any comments about it? No? Reassuring? Michael?
The only comment I would make is in terms of the referencing of the sites, because I think some of the numbering and the naming is a little confusing, because I think the naming that we've used in the Regulation 14 draft refers to different streets. So I just think that maybe just needs to be uniform. Either the viability report changes or we change it in the submitted draft. It's not a major issue, but I just think if you have slightly different names for the same thing, it confuses people. So,
absolutely.
So we just need to decide one name for each site.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, isn't that included in the list on our numbering?
I think most of the I checked it again this morning. I think most of the numbering reads through, but I think it's more about the street names that are referred to.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I say, it's a very minor thing, but
I think it's important though.
Yeah.
Are you happy to do that work?
I'm happy to go back through it and just say,
Just be certain.
Yeah. You know, this is the name we've used. Could you please use this? Yeah.
We'd be very grateful for that. I think we just need to be certain.
Sorry, would it not be better to get the site names changed in the viability study to match? Because we've got the history of all the site assessments, haven't we?
So, yeah. So I think it's the way I said it, but yeah, that's what
I understood he was doing.
That's what I was trying to say.
But the viability study was in by April, so
Yeah.
we need them to amend that.
Yes, but we need to tell them where to amend it. Yeah. So I think...
Hang on. So it's on page 9, isn't it, we're talking about? Is that right, Michael?
It's throughout. They mention sites throughout.
Yeah, I think it's throughout, and I think there's a particular issue with it's either Appendix 1 or Appendix 2, which I think there's, yeah, it just needs to be standardised. Yeah.
Right, okay. Could I... Yes.
Sorry.
I think I'm right in saying that, and apologies, I didn't make a note of where, but I think I'm right in saying that somewhere AECOM have dropped on the master planning sites, the CNDP 6/27, they actually referred to somewhere as just CNDP 27, I'm pretty sure. Right, okay.
Drop the 6, which is our policy. So it's that naming and numbering to be consistent.
Okay.
Actual content's fine, it's just typos throughout.
Okay, so could I propose that subject to the nomenclature of the sites being absolutely firmed up by Michael, that we approve this document to go to full council? Somebody second that? Okay, all those in favour?
Has this been one of the ones that's been sent out?
No, I don't believe so.
The original one was.
This is the updated one.
This is the updated one, so this hasn't been to full council yet.
All the others have been sent to all the members of the council so they can look at it and point out any errors.
Yes, and the comments that we got have gone into these new versions. So we're approving these now. Yeah, just so that they can then be sent out to everybody.
Okay, so that's the viability. Small tweaks, but important tweaks on the naming, and then back to Gina, and Gina out to the rest of the council and brought to the next full council. So I'd like to skip over the green spaces because I think that's the most to discuss. Coal risk, clearly avoid Coal Pit Lane. That's the place to avoid if you don't want to fall down a hole. Absolutely fascinating to see the sort of history across Waterside, but I certainly don't have any comments on that. Does anybody? No?
I think we should be aware that I'm trying to think of the timescale, the late 80s, I think, there was a planning application to reopen or to start again a mine off, I can't remember the top of Knots Lane, where you turn off to go to the golf club. Can't remember its name. There was one there and the proposal was that the wagons were coming up and down Knots Lane. Now it's all gone quiet, but it was a drift mine as well. So
Right, I can't see that happening now.
no, but we should just be aware. I mean, and I take it from the conclusions on here that there isn't a problem unless.
Well, I think really the conclusion is more along the lines of, we're aware that there are an awful lot of mines. We are aware that if there were sites to come forward, there'd have to be more research. I mean, that is the broad base of it. I think I'm right in, if I could do that, put that into a sentence.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. It's a bit like if you buy a house, you know, most people will be required to pay, is it 50, 75 quid for a coal mining report, and you get it back and it'll tell you in an area of risk of coal mining, but it won't really tell you if there's any significant issue. All we're saying is, yes, there could be a risk, but that will be something that needs to be determined at planning application stage.
Yeah, which is sort of common sense, really.
You know, there's nothing in there that, based on the available information from the coal authority, rules out any of the sort of 20 or so sites that we want to allocate. You know, there's none of them sort of sat on top of known mine shafts or, you know, anything like that. So yeah, there may be a risk, but that needs to be quantified at a later stage, but it doesn't stop the allocation process.
Okay. So where'd we got to? I'd moved it. David had seconded it. Did we vote on it? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we're moving that one forward as well. So I'd like to then move on to the list of non-designated heritage assets, which I told Gina I'd become far too close to for obvious reasons. I read it again and rewrote a whole section of it. And so that's what you're looking at now, not the previous versions. I found out loads about Burton's, how they always went on those corner sites, etc. So it's a question of, Gina's been through it, David's been through it. Howard?
Couple of points, just a general one, first of all. On some of the, I'm actually looking at the page that says ambulance hall, now a dance school. The other one that stood out to me was Barclays Bank doesn't say, should say now empty or now closed. There are some where it's like that, and others where it isn't. Unfortunately, I haven't made a long list of. I just wonder whether people think you know, going back to the consistency Michael was on
It's
about
difficult,
earlier,
yes.
that we should adopt one thing or.
Things constantly move, and I think that's some of the benefit since Regulation 14 of giving the addresses and plotting them on the map so that we're certain. But I refer to Michael for best advice here. It's very difficult because was a dance school, it's now not a dance school already since I wrote it.
Yeah.
So, you know, Barclays Bank, you know, it's difficult.
Yeah, I think this is a little different, isn't it? Because you know, things can move in and out of uses. I think if you take the Barclays Bank example, if it has a sort of historic name in terms of what it was originally called, I think then you could probably comfortably use that. You know, maybe the only way around this is that if something's gone out of use, is to say so-and-so house, formerly Barclays Bank.
Yeah, I've done a bit of that, but perhaps.
Yeah. It's a.
No. Would you like me to go through it again with a? I think the point is that David might stab me because it's the index. I know, and I'm dyslexic, so it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm constantly looking for them. Yes. So if I stop it being Barclays Bank, it won't be under B anymore.
In the interests of marital harmony, I think. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, but a serious, very serious point now on Atkinson Street, which is the fourth one down.
Yes.
I strongly object to the phrase schizophrenic street.
Okay. Well,
that
we
is
can
a much
change
it is a much misused word and is a medical word that has a medical. I know we all tend to use it in a.
What page is it on? Oh yeah, I see it. 4.
Sorry, I don't know what page it was on.
Yeah.
It's
I'll happily
on
change
4.
that. That's no problem at all.
You know, I just think we ought to be careful with phrases like that.
Okay, happily change that. Do you know, obviously, if you could prompt me. Anything else? I could look at taking the dance school out of the ambulance hall, because everybody knows it's the ambulance hall. That's just a bit to take out, isn't it? Anything else? Yes.
Just from the point of view of Barclays Bank, is it the building that is the heritage?
Yes.
And what was the building before Barclays had it? It was Martin's, I think.
Was it? Do I say that, though? I think I might say it.
I think before Martin's, it must have been some sort of other use. And should it not be?
Here it is, it says it here. Originally Craven's Bank, then Martin's Bank.
Yeah. Well, should we not be listing it in its either its correct address and then say formally in the text? It is in the text. So listing it in the index, shouldn't it just be its address? 62 Albert Road or whatever it is, or 1 Market Street.
I think David might come round to your house and stab you at that point.
Why don't we take the view that everyone knows it's a Barclays Bank, even if it's empty now, and it mentions its heritage, as you say, and the location is on the map as well.
I think that's been the point of the mapping, so that you can exactly see if you hover over the map.
Yeah.
And thank you to Liz for doing all of that work, that you can go onto Albert Road and see what's there. You know, very few people will be remembering it as Craven's Bank or Martin's Bank, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. I remember it as Martin's.
I think you're in a small subgroup.
Change 60s, I would say.
Yeah.
So I'll change the dance school, I'll change Atkinson Street, find better describing words. But otherwise, are we happy for that to go forward to the rest of the councillors?
Contradictory street?
I'll come up with something. Yeah? Yeah? Go on then. David proposes. Howard seconds. All in favour? Splendid. Now, I think we've got some nubby questions here over local green spaces. And let me organise my desk so that we can start with them. So, just before the meeting began, Brian came up and said on page 107, the numbering of the sites is out of sequence, and it is, and you can see it right at the top, and it's the work of moments to change it. The other things that are the work of moments, I think, are mention of the Philip Wright Crown Green Bowling Academy, with a little link, because they have transformed that area within Alkincoats. And mention of the Forest School at Park Primary. I've suggested a sentence for that. I have got here the species list for Gibb Hill, which is a biological heritage site. And I wondered whether that was worthwhile including, and I note that you mentioned about all the people that were writing about Gibb Hill in 2016. Well, even more people wrote about Gibb Hill at the Local Plan Part 2 consultation in 2021, and I could get all of those details so that we can update it from 2016. And then, wait a minute. Oh, I looked at Alice here, page 62, Hag Street. I don't know whether you've heard this, Alice, about why Hag Street's called Hag Street. Oh, I've suggested a sentence. Local legend has it that this piece of land acquired its name from an aged lady, the original hag, who ran a baby farm in a cottage on the site, serving working women who could not look after their offspring themselves. That was quite an interesting thing. Apparently she had loads and loads of children. But I haven't seen any written evidence of this. It's local legend.
I was going to say, is this folklore?
Local legend. But it's nice. A local legend is a nice thing to include. So what else was there? And then this is more nubby, and Gina and I agree on this, that Greenfield Mill, local green space 22, was not in Regulation 14, but came about in response to Regulation 14. It was actually Alice's mother who put it forward, and it was one of those online, one of those Zoom sessions that it was put forward. So that 102, yeah. So they're the sort of things that I think are clear.
Can I add one more?
Go on.
The list we've got in section 4.1, so the big long list of the final ones.
Yes.
So obviously, Ryan's pointed out the numbering, and that's what got me looking at the numbering. And then I thought to myself, well, number 8 was Gibb Hill,
Yes.
and number 17 was Wood Street, and they're
Right.
not in our final list anymore.
No.
But they're still profiled
Yes.
in the main document.
And we did that, if you remember, to show our reasoning throughout, and we did that at Regulation 14 to show that it had been considered.
Keeping all the detail, even though we've taken those 2 out.
That's what we did before. I looked to Michael.
Well, I think that's what the examiner will expect you to be able to show. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the examiner will be looking to see, do the local green spaces designated in your neighbourhood plan meet paragraphs 101 to 103 of national policy? And in demonstrating that, I think it is important to show that you've considered a wide range of spaces, some which you consider meet paragraphs 101 and 102, and some which don't.
So that sort of brings me very neatly to another of my questions. Sorry.
Can I just, were you saying that Wood Street had been removed from the list?
It didn't meet demonstrably special. Is that Wood Street?
I
was
don't
not
think,
demonstrably
I'd be surprised if Wood Street has been removed.
I can't remember, I'm afraid. You'll have to go to it, I'm afraid.
Okay. So what was the reasoning for that?
Don't know. I have to see it.
It's a local green space in front of the cottages on Wood Street.
Does it say it in the actual text, Gina?
What?
Yeah. I don't know.
What page number is it?
76.
76.
Yes, 17.
And where are the lists of the areas that have been accepted?
I don't remember it being.
The conclusion is actually 4.
99.
That's not relevant, is it? That's just been amended. You don't need to log.
The final list is page 107, section 4.
107, section 4.
From the initial list, OGS 8, 14 and 17 has been omitted, and Wood Street's number 17.
So what's the reasoning?
What's the reasoning?
I don't say it, is it?
I thought this was one we'd agreed at, you had agreed at a previous meeting didn't go forward because it wasn't demonstrably special.
I think it's that one that has a bin and a bench. What's that one?
No, it's not that one.
No, it's not that one.
It's not the Dewhurst one.
Ah, there we go.
It is not Dewhurst one.
It's a different one.
It's Wood Street.
So thank you for raising that, Alice. I think that was
So
just simply a mistake.
is Wood Street still there?
I think so. It was the one that said it's a bin and a bench and it's not very special. I think that's the one that's not
Which
the one.
unfortunately I still think is special, but it sort of started to panic me that Wood Street was disappeared.
I
from
don't
the-
think so.
No.
It surprised me when you said that.
Can I just at this point mention about Essex Street? The
updated.
The updated.
Yes.
In the copy that I received, it was the old one, but I
And we
think
forwarded that to Michael.
yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, go on, Michael.
Can I just clarify what the issue is there? Because I did have the two versions and I've recompared them again this afternoon, and the only difference I can see is the version that's in the document talks about the proposal for it to be designated as a pocket park. So is that the bit that needs to be deleted?
Basically, it was all a little bit like it's going to be, and it's not actually happening yet. So this is more about what it is at this moment.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Yeah, we did state that we had to do the assessment on the land as it is now,
Yes.
rather than what it could be in the
Otherwise,
future.
somewhere else, you could say, we're going to build a mountain, but we just haven't done. Right, okay. Well, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's important. So, what was I had,
Sorry, can we just before we go off Wood Street, because
Yes.
it's not in the list on page whatever it was, 104. But if you actually read what it says about it, it says things like residents were given trees to plant and are still looking after them.
Yeah,
So I don't know why it was taken out.
I think it was a mistake.
Oh, right, well,
I think all we have to do is just add it back in on this one.
right.
Yeah.
It doesn't write about it anywhere else to say, you know, it's removed because of whatever. So I think it's just there.
All right, so they're all the sort of, though that was a big one, they're all the sort of very straightforward ones.
I've got one more straightforward one on LGS3, where it says Lake Berwayne walking area. It's not Lake Berwayne. If anything, it's called Brownhill Reservoir or Fulridge Upper Reservoir,
Okay,
which it actually says on the map.
okay. Well, we can change that, can't we?
And people know Lake Berwayne as
As the lower one.
as the Lake Berwayne, yeah.
The one where people sail.
Yes, Berwayne Sailing
Okay, so
Club, etc.
we changed that. That's the work of
It's-
moments again. Brilliant.
Mr. Webber's front garden.
Okay, so bigger questions then.
Can I just make another comment? I do find that the document is a little bit confusing because it's got things in there
Yes.
that people believe are there, and then when they get to the conclusion, they've obviously been rejected. And I think that's the issue that you were sort of saying, that it's a tricky one seeing the journey, because sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. It does seem to be a little bit confusing at times, that you've got certain pieces of land in and you think, oh, all is okay, and then
Yes.
you've come to the end and you've not realised that they've been taken out, or
Well, that was what I was going to
Something.
raise next, because
Yeah.
on page 68 and 65, there were two that very clearly state in the description where they stand, but the others don't. So I just wondered whether we could solve this uncertainty by either at the end of each one saying, but see the conclusion on page whatever, then everybody knows to see whether it's included, see the conclusion, or to give a conclusion after each one. Because then it's clear, because at the moment there are just 2 that say they don't meet the standard. 3, okay. And I think it'd just be easier if they were all treated in the same way. Paul?
Yeah, I would agree. It's far more user friendly if in some way it's very clearly indicated. I was going to suggest that maybe the text was color coded or something like that, or even put the ones that have been rejected in italic, or some really obvious way, so you don't have to read it all and get to the end
And then go, oh,
I've just read all that, but it's actually not in. You know.
yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure that Michael's had this problem before.
Can we not put the conclusion?
I think the easiest way is just to add to the conclusion in terms of which of the national policy criteria it's not considered to meet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be the clearest
and you
way
can see
to
it
do
for
it.
every single one, and it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm glad we've solved that, because I'd raised that in my list. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
So we've dealt with Park Primary, Hag Street, the conclusions for each one. Greenfield Mill coming in after Reg 14. And I'd like and the Philip Wright Crown Green Bowling Academy. Plus we've made sure that Wood Street's in. So I'd like to ask about page 8 and page 11, because you deal with this on page 12 as an extension to Alkincoats Nature Reserve. But my feeling is this has happened, so it would just be better, in my view, to amend the map and just treat it as, this is the size of it, this has happened, which it has. It's been passed at, oh no, you're pulling your face. Go on.
Well, my reading of the policy and resources decision is, yes, you intend to do it, but there is a caveat in terms of talking to the existing tenant. And I also assume that there must be some sort of process around extending the local nature reserve itself. So you've taken a decision at one level, but I don't think as of December, January 2021-22 that is a done deal.
Oh.
I do think the other thing is that I do think the actual proposed extension creates an issue, because
It's too big then.
does it put it into the category of extensive tract of open land? And
So
I think
I'll tell you a little
that's
bit-
where you're heading.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about it, and you can make a judgment. This piece of land is not intended for members of the public to tramp across. So they're going to keep it closed to increase the ecology and to have a place where dragonflies breed and so on. So it's almost going to be like those parts of National Trust land that are kept, I suppose they're rewilded really, but it's going to have a sort of man-made wetland element to it. But it's not going to be, you could go and walk your dog there, or Alice could have a picnic. It's not that. So is it right that we deal with it separately? I'll come to you in a second.
I think from that description, I think that's a further negative.
Right.
Because whilst it's not inconceivable that a local green space has no public access, generally examiners want to see that it
does.
To be demonstrably special, it has to be used.
This is only demonstrably special to the dragonfly.
So I don't think that kind of wording would help at all.
So would you propose that the best thing to do is keep it separate the way you've done it, mention the extension, but essentially lead with the position of what's open to the public now?
That'd be my advice, because I think otherwise you're entering territory of extensive tract of open land. Who knows, that decision may not pan out as expected. And as I say, what's the process for designation of a local nature reserve? I don't know what it is, but I assume there must be something.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, we know about it, but until told otherwise, we've got the nature reserve as is.
Okay.
I feel on more comfortable ground with that one, because national policy and guidance does talk about local green spaces being protected for their biodiversity value.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Is everybody else happy with that?
I was going to say, it's similar to the Essex Street thing, that you're looking at what it is now and how people use it now rather than how it's going to be used in the future.
That's true. That's true. Jerry?
From a point of view of process, and I've done this, when you extend a nature reserve, it has to go to the owner, which is the council.
Yeah.
The council have to approve it, which they have in both the case of Alkincoats and Ball Grove.
Okay.
But it then has to go to government.
Oh.
And the government have to ratify it, and until they ratify it, it is formally not
Right.
an extension.
So we'll be talking about the future. It's irrelevant.
In the future, it will be.
Yeah.
At the moment, it isn't.
Right. And we have to represent what it is now.
That's right.
Okay.
One
So-
thought, should we just remove that page?
What about the extension?
Well, why remove the reference in Essex Street, maybe during pocket well one day.
Your light's not on.
This one might be extended, but isn't. Especially if they're two
Take a
separate.
bite.
Especially if they're two separate things. One you walk across, etc., etc. It's special. It's almost like this extra bit won't count if it was standalone.
It's one way forward, but the information's there in the public domain. I think it's equally valid to publish it, but just say we're sticking for the time being with the existing boundary.
That's fair enough.
Should that change, if anybody queries that, and you say, well, should that change between now and the examination, then we'll look forward.
And it looks like we considered it. We did consider it.
Why not change proposed to possible?
I think that gives more doubt than there really is.
That map's taken from the P&R report, so
Okay.
I'd rather stick with
What's
has
officially
been said rather than. Where am I looking?
Okay. Well, okay. All right. So that was a question that I raised, and I'm so glad that we raised it and discussed it, and the fact it comes in with consistency of Essex Street as well. And here's another question. Page 20, the map of the upper rough doesn't show the development on the lower rough, and I wondered whether that was misleading.
I don't think it's misleading, but we're limited by the ordnance survey base that's available.
Okay.
So
It's the right shape, it's the right ground.
perhaps
Okay.
if we used a different OS base, we might, have a posh, port built site. But yeah, these things are sort of, they're not updated. I'm sure there's a base out there that's 3-6 months old, but this one, doesn't reflect that yet.
Okay. And
Sorry.
Yeah.
What we could do, if you like, is annotate the map to point out that that's now being developed.
I think that's a simple way to do it, pragmatic way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So just going back to Gibb Hill, are you happy with sort of putting in the Pendle local plan response rate, responses to the local plan 2 from last year? Do you want me to write to Pendle Council?
I'd be very wary of doing that because I think that confuses what are two separate processes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that you mentioned that it had some of the highest rates in 2016, and that was Pendle Council.
As I say, as well as people who live here, one of the main audiences for this document in the end will be the independent examiner. And I'm sure he or she will say, well, that's not really relevant to me because that's a separate process.
Okay.
I'm only all I can consider is representations made to the neighbourhood plan.
Fair enough. Page 50. I just need to remind myself of what it exactly says. Because it could just be we take a sentence out then. Is that page 50? Sorry, I'm so blind. So it says, it is special to the local community. In 2006, oh no, not 2016, when the local plan was last reviewed, 312 residents expressed support for the continuing existence of the hillside as a green space. So if you don't want to bring in the latest evidence, I think the most consistent thing would be to take out that sentence, and then we don't mention the Pendle local plan at all.
Could you just repeat the page again, please?
Page 50.
Yeah, okay. I think to be consistent, then if we've got information on local plan part 2, let's add that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Splendid. So I think we've mentioned your numbering, Brian. I think that's all the things that we needed to deal with, unless anybody's got anything else for local green spaces.
Can I just clarify, is Gib Hill now going in and being accepted?
No.
So at the moment it's not got any real protection. And is there anything we can do about that?
Well, it's got open countryside, and of course, the fact that the local plan part 2 was not accepted means that the 75 houses that Pendle Council had slated for there are not now. And it was very, very clear from the last consultation how important the site is seen to be, which is why I suggested that we include all the ecological evidence, which shows that it easily meets the criteria to be a biological heritage site.
And when they were doing the consultation for the local plan 2, so many people put in their objections, didn't they?
Which is what we've just discussed. I mean, what's changed, of course, Alice, is that previously, as I understand it, there were only 2 areas of Gib Hill. I think perhaps Liz knows the most about this, but there were only 2 areas of Gib Hill that met the criteria for a biological heritage site, which would be a big red flag for development. Whereas Lancashire Wildlife Trust have shown that, in fact, all of it now appears to meet the criteria to be a biological heritage site. So it would be a big no-no under the MPPF to build on it anyway. So it's not only local countryside, it's got that.
I'm just sort of looking at the map, and to be fair, it doesn't look that extensive. But perhaps my judgment of that area,
I think it's because it goes into Nelson as well. So there's no clear boundary.
I see. We're just talking here about Cone, aren't we?
I know. But if you think of it as an entity, it is big, isn't it?
Yes.
I think as well, that's one of the important reasons why the local plan part 2 was rejected. Because obviously the way it was drafted, although the housing target was too high anyway, it did have 8 greenfield sites identified for development. And this was obviously one of them. So all the people that wanted to vote for that would have sacrificed this potentially. So not a good move.
And yet all the housing numbers were coming off Nelson as well, which is another point to note.
It's just a concern that we've got this opportunity to protect something that we don't seem to be able to.
Well, throughout our document of these green spaces, we have added, birds that are seen, trees that we have, curlews that are breeding, whatever, depending on which green spaces we're talking about, as well as people eating ice creams and listening to bands in bandstands, because they're enjoying that in a different way. is it appropriate to include this evidence as an addendum of the ecological richness of Gib Hill?
I think given that you've previously decided that Gib Hill doesn't go forward as a local green space, I don't really think it changes anything.
Okay.
You know, if that survey work has been done, then that is factual information that can be then used in, you know, the local plan review process. But I don't really think it changes the conclusions to the local green space. Because I think the big thing about Gib Hill, local green space, is having worked on a lot of these and seen how the extensive tract to land issue is such a big issue for examiners. You know, hand on heart, I just can't say to you that would get through, because I really don't think it would.
Okay.
You know, I can't think of anything. I can think of many things comparable that were rejected, but I can't think of anything that made it through.
So really, why push at a closed door? Liz, do you have something to add here?
Well, I was just looking for John's summary from the Lancashire Wildlife Trust, and it isn't all BHS, but he confirmed the biological heritage status of those fields that had already been designated. The rest now meet LNI.
Right.
I can't remember what that means.
LNR.
Oh, right, okay. And some fields meet biological heritage status grassland guidelines. So I think it's slightly more complicated than we thought, but basically his survey said that it was more precious than we originally thought. And maybe not all BHS, but parts of it, certainly the grassland is, and all those other bits that aren't BHS are he's put LNI, but I can't remember what that means. But it might mean LN. No, he's definitely meaning LNI.
Oh.
Because he's put it twice.
Yeah. No, we're all a bit mystified by that. LNR is a thing, but I don't know about LNI.
LNI. See if I can work out.
No, even
Is it
Michael,
something
Michael's
land
mystified
of
by
natural interest or something along that?
Yeah, it is something like that.
that. Okay. Local natural importance.
That's it. Yeah.
Well done.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
David can read.
I mean, what is certain is that the 3 surveys that he did have upgraded the status of the hill. So nothing has gone backwards.
No, we're very
Everything's
grateful.
moved forward.
That's
Yeah.
cost the Lancashire Wildlife Trust quite a bit of money. We're very grateful to them to be doing that, really.
Yeah.
Okay, marvellous. So I think we know where we're going with all the tweaks, the bigger things we've discussed. Any other issues with the local green spaces? No? Okay. So I know that there were quite a few tweaks, but I am really keen to move this on. And I took advice from Gina before the meeting, and she said, actually, if we've discussed everything and we know where it's going, in terms of we'll change the numbering, we'll add a sentence at the end of every description to make it consistent or whatever, that we could, on the proviso that all of that is done, that we could then vote to say that next version goes forward to the town councillors when the work is complete. Is everybody happy with that as a concept? Yeah? Okay, so I move it. And Howard seconds it. All those in favour? Brilliant. Okay. I feel that that's real progress, and we've got quite a few things for everybody else to read now, and we've shoved those things off our desks. Okay, so moving on to item 8, which is other elements of the evidence base, to consider whether other technical documents are ready to be put forward for approval by full council.
not actually sure there's many technical documents left, is
Well,
there?
let's, I'm just, he's writing away, well, we won't get him off in his prime, it'll annoy him. So what have we got left?
Um,
Have we heard from
I'm
the
sure
Environment
I've
Agency?
missed something, but based on the 4 we've just discussed, there's the site assessments report.
That's waiting on the Environment Agency still.
Well,
And that's the environment assessment.
No, that's the
The environment assessment.
well, yeah. Perhaps we talk about that one first.
Okay.
The strategic environmental assessment, habitat regulations assessment. We are still awaiting response from Environment Agency.
We're chasing.
Yeah. So until we get that, that cannot be revised. The revision of that, based on my assumption the Environment Agency won't say very much, is that that's a relatively minor tweaking to that document.
Okay.
So as soon as we get that, that would I hope be ready.
But that's just another outside agency that we can't control, we can only chase.
What I'd suggest there to sort of move things along is revise that. That could come to this committee, but in the meantime, you have to show that the Borough Council agrees with the conclusions. So whilst this committee are considering it, get that off to Pendle,
Okay.
that draft, and say, do you agree with the conclusions of this report?
Good plan.
If the 3 statutory bodies are saying they're happy, I don't see why Pendle Borough should disagree with that, because that's not their job.
Okay.
Yeah. So that if we got that tomorrow, we could probably sort of fire that out at the end of the week, early next week. Yeah.
Okay.
The site assessment, the housing site assessments report, again, could probably be brought together with the caveats that we are still awaiting some of the master planning work.
Yes.
and other things, but
that really is the icing on the cake.
Yeah,
You could do the cake, couldn't you?
as it stands, this is what we've got.
And how long would that be to get that done without the master plan, i.e., to get it so that it's
Well, again, if we set aside the master planning work for the time being, then that's in a reasonable state of revision.
okay?
I think the only issue may be the assessment of the Bunkers Hill site. I was thinking about that on the way here, and I can't remember off the top of my head whether that was done or not.
Well, yes, it was, wasn't it?
Right. Well, if it was, it must be in there. It was just. I was just
Do you
trying to.
remember that Neil Watson replied and said there needs to be garages?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, but wasn't that in response to the master plan, not to your site assessments report?
Okay. Oh.
It was, but it is included in the site assessment report that's on the website for Regulation 14.
Well, that was just the old thinking thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's in a reasonable state. I think that could come to your next meeting.
Okay.
Sitting alongside that, English. English heritage.
Historic England.
Historic England.
Yeah.
Asked for a heritage appraisal of the housing sites. Again, that's pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
That was largely waiting on the final list of sites. Probably need to check through again.
Okay.
Then the other 2 are the consultation statement.
Okay. Well, that is what it is. In that, that's what people have said.
If for the next meeting, if you're willing to accept a document that perhaps doesn't have the results of the design code consultation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything but the design
Everything
codes.
but that, I think we could probably probably write up at this stage because we've got that information and that can be written up.
We have.
It won't be the finished article.
It'd be nearly there.
There you go.
Okay.
The one I think we have to wait for the final copy of the plan is the basic condition statement.
Michael, sorry, I just noticed
Going
this
off.
now.
Yeah. Well, the one that we'll have to follow on with the final version of the plan itself is the basic condition statement, because part of that has to set out how the policies themselves meet, how they're consistent with national planning policy, and how they are in general conformity with policy in the core strategy. And obviously, until we have final versions, we can't really write that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that really sort of
That is
right
almost
at
the last minute.
Well, yeah, it's just the sort of back end of the process.
Yes.
Because I know you've committed to the health check, and I'm sure one of the things that health check will say is, oh, there should be a basic condition statement, to which I always reply, well, yes, there will be, but we can't write it till we know what we're assessing. Yeah. So 4 out of the 5
Left
could be
at the next
meeting.
Okay.
Then that one with the plan itself and the health check to come, they probably all need to be sort of bundled together for a further meeting. But I think that's reasonably on track for what we've discussed before.
Okay. Oh, it's still so much to do. It's still so much to do. We are just keeping going and ticking these documents off, and that's all we can do, and finding all the things that we would quibble with, which is what we need to do. And making sure. Is everybody happy with that? Any further questions?
Perhaps it would be helpful that in the minutes they're individually listed, because I'm sort of scribbling them here, and I'm sure later on I'll forget what they're...
What you mean for the amendments that we've suggested?
The documents that are still to...
Run through.
Yeah, outstanding.
Just a sort of summary. Marvellous. Okay, so moving on to the Cone Design Code consultation, and I wrote a survey. Now, I know that writing a survey is a specialist thing, and I don't know that I did very well. I tried my best. But I think the critical thing about it is to write in the rubric above it to say that we accept part fillings in, because I think it's far too much to ask that people read the whole of the design codes, but they might be interested in just a bit of it. So the survey I designed is to sort of get some initial sort of support or interest right at the beginning and at the end, and then in the middle it takes you through the document saying, do you agree with the material palette? Do you agree with these overarching principles on page whatever? And I'm sort of hoping, rather like a person trying to tempt a pony into a horse box, to put the pony nuts up the ramp and try and get somebody that wasn't going to read all of it through the document, and before they know it, they've finished it. That is how I approached it. I don't know to what extent I succeeded. Does anybody have any advice to give here? We haven't sent it out yet. We're discussing it now.
It's out. Oh, right.
No, the survey isn't out.
No, I mean Gina sent us the...
Yes,
I sent you through the link so that you could have a look at it and we could gauge your opinion. Yeah.
I noticed Knott's Lane was spelled incorrectly.
Oh dear.
1 T instead of 2.
That's me, sorry. Okay, but generally, what did people think? Okay?
Nice closed questions, but obviously you want to get an answer.
Yeah.
4% say this, 22% say that.
Yeah.
99% of people agree with this.
I think, but it's really critical that we've sort of put in bold or caps or whatever to say, don't feel you have to do all 27 questions. 2 would be a response, frankly. But if you're prepared to do all 27, then you get an A star or something. I wonder, perhaps, could we offer a prize? Could we offer a thing? You know, you could go into a prize draw. No, that would be a penance, wouldn't it? But
People have done that in the past, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
With other survey things.
Yeah.
They offered free nightclub tickets or something like that to young people.
yeah, well, we don't have a
I
nightclub
think that
at
was
the
one
moment.
example that was quoted, I remember.
But we could offer a £50 prize potentially, could we not? If for a completed survey prize draw.
Oh no, that'll have to come to FES then, won't it?
Oh,
Let's
will it?
not.
I would have to look into what we can do and what we can't do in terms of.
Okay. Okay.
I'd lay fairly short odds that we shouldn't do it.
All right.
Because if it's an official, someone could say we're tempting people to fill this in.
Other neighbourhood plans do it. Other
Do
neighbourhood
they?
plans offer inducements. They do. They offer iPads. They offer days out. They offer raves. Alice?
Well, perhaps a visit to the council chamber to see a committee meeting.
To see Gina.
Exactly.
Tea with Gina. Oh. Oh no. Oh, it's all gone wrong.
It's just got sleep, I think.
Has it? We'll wait. People don't like the idea of a prize then?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
No? Just having a cup of tea? Okay, well, we won't do a prize then, but we will be able to share that soon. Yeah, as long as, no.
Unless anyone's got any other comments for any changes, or
Do we need to vote on it?
I don't know whether the wording isn't too wordy, if you see what I mean. The overarching design. Do we need the word overarching? Or
It's what it's called.
actually in the document there is a section that says overarching principles.
Looking at that.
We could just, it's called the overarching design principles on page 24 or whatever. We could just drop the word overarching and then they get to page 24 and they see that's what it's called.
I don't know. I think it points them to where they need to look for a summary.
in the orange
of
box,
what
isn't it?
is. Yeah,
Do we need to say it's in the orange box, perhaps?
I think it's
No,
it's straightforward. It's clear enough anyway. I think.
Okay. All right. Do we need to vote on moving this on?
I don't think so. I can.
Okay.
It's just.
I take the point at the beginning. If you only want to answer 2 questions,
We think it's a good idea.
I haven't gone right down to the bottom. Is there a general comment
There is,
thing at the bottom? Or if you just want to make a general comment.
and there is at the top as well. We're looking
Oh,
for
yeah,
somebody to
so-
support us.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah.
obviously we want people to support us. They might have something extra to say that we've not considered. But I'm really proud of this document now.
Can I suggest that we say that if we've any comments, we let you know by Friday, or let Gina know or yourself know by Friday, and otherwise we just go ahead.
I'm keen to just go ahead on the basis that we don't want to use up any more time in the consultation.
Quite.
Yeah, so I'd rather that it just went ahead.
But I'd like to have the opportunity of reading it through and
Okay.
then coming back to you.
Can I set you a deadline of midday tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
could
not,
do.
there are only 27 questions. It's
Yeah,
not
I
like
know. No
War
problem.
and Peace.
No problem. I'll probably do it tonight.
Okay.
Just a general, sometimes these comment boxes, if you don't put anything in them, you get.
Kicked out.
Have we tested that you don't have to actually put a full stop?
I haven't actually tested, but I did put the don't validate the item. So I think it will let you go past. I'll try and do it myself anyway before we put it out.
Okay. All right. So everybody's happy. Jerry just wants to have a look at it. Might do it tonight. Might do it first thing. We appreciate that, and then hopefully it can go out tomorrow. Marvellous. So we had the first Zoom. We had one person submit written questions, which you saw I replied to this afternoon. We had some members of this group pitched up for it, which was very kind. And we had some people come to the group and not realise they could read the document. So I wrote another press release for this week and social media for Facebook, Twitter and Instagram that made that clear with a link, so that hopefully, in a sense, having a Zoom so early in the process was very good, because it flushed out keen people, some of whom may come again to the next one, but it also flushed out a problem with the initial PR, which is sometimes you can assume something, because you know that there's a document underpinning it, but, you know, one person said, oh, I thought you were, I opened up and said, this is what it's for, and let's discuss it. And the person said, oh, I thought you were going to tell us all about it. So I backtracked a bit, did a quick, yeah, exactly. So we've done extra publicity around that, and to say that people can come into the town hall, and that there is a session where they can come into the town hall and ask questions. And already people have asked for links for the 16th of February, which is the next Zoom. Yeah. So all I'm going to say to the rest of you really is tell your friends and family, because we need those responses to support us.
One extra thing in conclusion was that we also got some praise. Don't forget the praise we got as well, for people saying you obviously worked hard on this. It's a very all-encompassing document. So I think, you know.
Well, that was on Protect Pendle's Countryside.
Positivity about it, which was excellent to hear.
Yeah.
We're not flogging ourselves.
No, I think the Cone Bid thought that it was going to make it more onerous in the town centre. That's not the case.
I just wondered if there's a hard copy going into the library at all?
Into the library?
Into the library?
Oh, they changed their rules, and I wonder whether they've changed them back now, because they wouldn't have our documents before, would they?
I could certainly ring them and ask them if
Good
they'll
plan.
if they'll
Good
take
thought.
one.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for all of that.
Oh, yes. Yes, I will do. I'll send it through.
Okay. So, moving on then, if everybody's happy with the design code consultation, moving on to item 10, and I've written at the top of the page, mention the billing. So I had a little discussion with Gina before the meeting started, and we invite you to put in an invoice.
Thank you.
Excellent. And, you know, if you wish to look at it and consider a variation, that is obviously for Kirk Wells to do.
Yeah, I think the concern we had was the sort of number of meetings and the way the work has morphed, and the number of things that we're considering that based on, it's March 2020 when we put in the last fee proposal. So 2 years later, there's been a huge amount of changes, and I don't think we billed you in 2 years. So it was beginning to feel like a bit of pro bono work, and I'm just getting a bit concerned.
Well,
yeah.
You know, we don't want you to feel like that.
Thank you.
But, you know, and we understand, because we're all a bit worn out with the relentlessness of it, but we want to power through till the end, and I'm sure you feel the same.
You've got bills to pay.
The email was prompted by my finance manager.
Yeah, well, we've never discouraged you. To put this on record, we've not discouraged invoices for work completed. Okay, so that's been dealt with. And we've actually already covered this next item, I believe, which is a review of work yet to be completed. You know, we've done we've covered all those other documents, and we hope that we'll have some more to trickle down so that we can have another meeting soon. Okay, so moving on, item 11, items for a future month's agenda.
I suppose that'll be any of the documents coming forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I've spoken to Dave Chapman on the phone, and he just says, as soon as we are able to do our basic conditions, he promises rapid turnaround. He talked of a fortnight. So I just feel, I know Michael thinks that I'm over-egging it really. I just feel that having that seal of approval from locality who are experts in it gives our work that seal of approval as it moves through to the next stage, especially after what happened at Regulation 14. I don't want to go through that again. So we don't have any extra items. We just want to power through and do more documents, essentially. Date and time of the next meeting. I think we need to look at the documents, and I'll correspond with Gina. Gina corresponds with me. We correspond with Michael. We all correspond with each other. And as soon as we can give you a heads up on that, then we absolutely will.
Basically looking through extra documents to go to the March full council.
Yes.
Because these ones are going to February full councils, we know that. So we can sort of get an idea where we want to aim for. It's, I suppose, in a month's time then? That's what we're looking for, to give us enough time to then get them ready for the March.
It is what we're looking for, absolutely.
Okay.
But you know, if we get
late January,
if we get things that go wrong with the master planning, things that go wrong with the Environment Agency, we can't necessarily promise. We hope.
Right.
That's the thing. If you get suddenly they come to this committee and there's more amendments to be made, then obviously that delays the process. But the aim is to get them all to the March full council.
That'll be very exciting.
If that is missed, then it then goes to April full council. So.
Okay, we can but try. I think a lot of people who think that we haven't been getting on with it have no idea how much there is to do. They have no idea at all. They think that it's just like a couple of sides of A4, call it finished. So, brilliant. We will let you know as soon as we can. It'll be in about a month. And thank you very, very much for all your help and coming here tonight.